Adam and I were sitting on the couch and we were listening to some music, or we were watching it on YouTube, watching some videos. NPR calls it tiny desk concerts, and they're kind of unplugged versions, real intimate versions of some bands. We were listening to this song by Chris Stapleton. Anybody like Chris Stapleton? He's a powerful singer. Powerful, powerful stuff. And I was listening to the song. I hadn't heard this particular one before. And all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, it surprised me. I was just washed over with emotion. And I started crying. And I was transported like 15 years ago to a really painful time in my life. And it was interesting because it wasn't like directly related to the lyrics. It wasn't like the song was describing something that had happened to me. It wasn't directly related, and I wasn't back in that place in the same way that I was in the middle when I didn't know how it was going to turn out. I was feeling that feeling, though. And although it's not like I like to cry, yay, this is fun, it was meaningful, it was powerful, because I felt something that was real and true. And then I could release it. Have you ever had an experience with music like that, where it transported you back somewhere, sometime long ago, and it just touched you in a way that's, well, not really explainable? Maybe you haven't had that particular experience. Maybe for you, a powerful sense is your smell, and you catch a whiff of something in a random place, maybe in the kitchen, and it brings back some memories of Grandma's cooking. You know, Grandma's cornbread or something. We have those moments that we can't explain, but that we feel something real. I think music is one of the most powerful art forms that we have that can do that, but there are others, of course. Things that inexplicably put us in this place where we are in touch with our own feelings, our own emotions. We can feel something that is real and true. We are going to need muscles this morning. We are going to be exercising those emotional muscles of feeling what is true more than thinking. Just hang with me and I'll try to explain. So this series that we have been doing since the beginning of January, What Happens After We Die, has been about those common questions that, I get and I've asked many times, things that people just naturally are curious about and want to know. What happens after our time on earth is finished? And today's question is, what does heaven look like? But as usual, you know me. In order to ask that question, we actually have to ask the question first, what even are we talking about when we say heaven? What is that? I mean, we use the word in popular language in two different senses. On the one hand, we use the word, and it is used in the Bible this way, often to refer simply to the sky, the heavenly bodies, as they're often referred to, stars and planets and constellations and all of that wonder that we can look up and gaze upon in the dark. So we can use that word often in the plural, the heavens, and we're talking about stars and planets and such, things of the natural world that we can observe. And that, in fact, they tied together because in many places in the Bible, when it talks about angels and heavenly hosts, we've heard that phrase before. Have you ever wondered what exactly that means? Well, a lot of times they believed angels and what we know of as stars, which we know today are like balls of gas and light, but then they referred to as heavenly beings. There's the two senses, the astronomical sense of the word and also the theological sense. And those two, yes, definitely overlap. But it's important that we are able to take them in the proper context and understand what we're saying here. And especially when we are looking at what does the Bible say about heaven. So as I said, sometimes by heavens, the Bible is referring to the sky or stars and planets, whatever is out there that we can only glimpse. It helps to know, to have a little context about what the ancient Hebrew peoples understood the world to look like. So while the ancient Greeks had established some really good knowledge on like constellations and orbits and planets and stars, the ancient Hebrew people were from a different thought world, a different tradition. So they came holding a certain concept of what the universe looked like. And it's very different from what we now understand the universe to look like. So if you'll imagine with me, imagine a plate, a round, flat surface. That is how they represented Earth. And that is the part of the universe where humans and all the other creation lives and exists. And then imagine you have a clear bowl, a nice big dome bowl. Turn that over and put that on top of the plate. This, they believed, was called the firmament. And if you'll remember back in Genesis when it says God divided the waters from the waters, that didn't mean so that continents could exist on the earth, like on the globe. That meant the waters of what is out there and the waters below the earth. Because in the beginning, they imagined there was just chaos and just masses of stuff. And for them, that was characterized specifically in water, wild waters. And so when God separated the waters, that meant with this dome, God held back the waters above and put something on top of the waters below. And in that picture of the universe, they had carried with them some Greek influence started to come in. So originally, and I think it's safe to say from the last few sermons a few weeks ago, that not everybody believed exactly the same thing. And we're talking about a long period of time, so we're making some pretty big generalizations. But originally in that Hebrew cosmology, humans only lived on the earth, that realm of existence. And when our bodies died, when the material decayed, they went to live in the realm below the earth, the underworld or netherworld, in Hebrew, Sheol. But it wasn't, sometimes we automatically associate that with hell, but it wasn't, Sheol doesn't have a positive or a negative sense. It's just an everybody goes there. That's where all the dead are. And so into that world, into that thought world and concept, comes this Greek influence of we have a soul that is separated from our physical, material existence when we die. And that those souls ascend to heaven. Righteous and worthy souls can ascend, that is, to the heavens. And some theorized that that meant we could become stars when we died. Some did not hold that particular belief. But that's the understanding, that's the background to much of what the Bible says about the afterlife, is that kind of construction of the world. So, what does the Bible say? As with most things, the Bible doesn't say just one clear thing. It's not a dictionary where we can flip to the appropriate page and here's the picture and definition. We have to piece things together and interpret things. And there are several different possible interpretations one could make using biblical support. For example, one could say that heaven is a physical place that God will reconstruct or put back together our material existence, our physical stuff, and reform bodies into ones that are not, going to decay or break down, that will be there forever. But then within that interpretation, there's two possible branches. One, is that a real place that exists right now in some other, not on the earth place, that people go immediately when they die? Or is it a place that will be created upon the end of time, when God raises everyone to a day of judgment? Which then begs the question, where do they go immediately? And so there's, various offerings and interpretations. Paul seems to suggest that second thought, that there's, and he doesn't discuss it, but there must be some place where souls wait, and then God recreates and raises and resurrects. And then there's a place called heaven. There's also biblical support for the idea that heaven is not a physical location, but more of a state of being that holds non-physical matter, like just souls. And that would be more of the Greek influence. Paul's words in some places can be interpreted that way. There's other options as well. One that I kind of am partial to. It's not fully fleshed out or, has no holes in it, of course. Probably just indicates the amount of science fiction literature and TV that I have consumed, heaven could be an entirely different dimension that coexists simultaneously with this one, thereby answering the question of, is there a temporary holding pattern, with no, which matches what Jesus seems to indicate at the end of Luke when he speaks to one of the others, the thief on the cross beside him, and says, "Today you will be with me in paradise." Could be interpreted that way. But again, these are all theories. And they're all theories that could be supported with biblical material. I guess what's important to me, and what I hope that you take away from this study, is that sometimes we have either directly or indirectly been given the impression that there is one correct understanding, one view, and that if we do not hold that, we are not real Christians. That is not supported by the evidence. That's simply not true. There are a variety of interpretations, and the fact that we have people, early church founders in the 2nd and 3rd centuries, already arguing about these very things, gives us a hint that there was never a clear consensus answer. And so, if we've been arguing about it for that long, I doubt we're going to fix it today. What is helpful for me, because if you say, well, the Bible can support any of these things, why call on the Bible at all? What can it do for us? Here's where I would offer that we go to Revelation. But I think we need to go there in a proper context. And if just hearing Revelation in a sermon makes you a bit nervous, you're not alone. It took me forever to be able to preach from Revelation because, frankly, the people that I had seen and heard use Revelation a lot were a little strange. And they held some beliefs that I thought, that is potentially dangerous. And, well, some of them have been dangerous, Some people have used some of this language and interpreted some of that book in a way that they think they are doing the right thing by going out and harming others. It makes us a little nervous. But I've come to understand Revelation in a new way, and I hope to introduce you to that today. Here is where you are going to need those emotional muscles that we talked about before. So I need you to recall a time or place that something of that nature had happened to you. Music or another art form or something typically had brought you to a place of deep feeling where you felt something very, very real. You've all got something? Okay. So Revelation is a different kind of literature than we typically encounter today. But it was not a very rare form for the time in which it was written. It was actually a popular form. There was lots of apocalypses and apocalyptic literature out there. That's the technical name for this type of work. An apocalypse is a work, a written work that uses images and symbols to evoke emotions. And those emotions then can expose truth, can speak in a way that our regular language can't quite get at. It speaks on a different level to us, primarily through our emotions, not through our prefrontal cortex or thinky parts, as I like to call them. This is with a different part of your brain. And one mistake people often make with Revelation, and I used to kind of think this way as well, but one thing that we often try to do is figure out what all those symbols were like. Like if we could decode it, like it's a work that's written in like this coded language, and that this symbol, this image means this in their time, and if we could just figure that out, then we could crack open the real meaning. But that's not really fair or faithful to that type of literature. That makes it into like an allegory, which is an entirely different type of literature in which symbols are used and each thing represents something else. Like Plato was really good with that. But that's not what Revelation is. So it's not something that we can easily pick out one-to-one comparisons. And sometimes it is helpful to know like what would those symbols and images have meant when it was written. There is definitely some value in that, considering we are so distanced from its original time and culture. But that's not what I want to do this morning. What I want to do this morning is exercise our emotional muscles, where I'm going to share a passage that to me helps me answer the question, what does heaven look like? But not in a literal word way, in an emotional truth way. So I don't want you to just listen to this passage. Feel it. Do you get what I mean? Don't just hear it as words. Picture it and let it go to that place where you feel it. Revelation chapter 21, first 5 verses. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the former heaven and the former earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, made ready as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. I heard a loud voice from the throne say, "Look, God's dwelling is here with humankind. He will dwell with them, and they will be his peoples. God himself will be with them as their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. Death will be no more. There will be no mourning, crying, or pain anymore. Then, for the former things have passed away. Then the one seated on the throne said, "Right." Oh, I'm sorry. The one seated on the throne said, "Look, I'm making all things new." He also said, "Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true." Let us feel what the Spirit is speaking to God's people. So that I don't bring to you as a literal picture of a future event. That's not, in my opinion, something that is literally going to happen as it is described there. The author, John, is using this vision that he had, a transcendent visionary experience where he was swept to some other place and he felt what was true, and then is trying to explain that to us. Have you ever tried to explain a dream that you had to somebody? And it goes something like, well, first we were in the classroom and you were the teacher and you said, and then we were in the house where I grew up and you weren't you anymore. You were grandma, and then you've had that experience, right? Where it was powerful up here, and then when you tried to explain it, it was like, I guess I got my timeline. No, maybe that happened for it. You just can't explain it because it's not explainable in a literal timeline sort of way. That's the weight that this carries of almost an unexplainable dream. But the details, that's not what it's all about. And there are people who focus only on those details, and we've got to figure each and every one of them out to crack the code. John wants you to feel what's true. So I'll end by telling you what I know what I know by feeling to be true. And where I go when I wonder what eternal life is like. And when I want to share that with someone else, I go to that feeling place where God wipes away tears gently, lovingly, with a soft hand. And there's no pain. There's no suffering. There's no worrying. And all is at rest. We simply be in God's presence. That's not something literal and tangible I can show you, but it's something I can feel to be true. Can you feel that truth? I want to take a moment to invite you to consider the next step in your journey of faith. If you are with us for the first time this morning, and maybe this applies to some of you online, or maybe if you've been here a little while, but you are looking for a place to call home, to be on a journey of faith in community with others, we would love for you to consider joining with us here. And if that means you would like to dedicate your life to Christ for the first time, we'd be delighted to celebrate that with you as well. Or let's say you've been here a really long time and you know what everything, you come in, you do your thing. Is there something else? Something that you feel to be true, but you can't quite put your finger on it? Or something that you want to feel what is true? Then hopefully we can help you with that as well. Come and share that with me, or get in touch with me this week, or share that with someone in your small group. And God has a wonderful way of working through others, speaking to us like that. So with that thought to contemplate for the week, let us stand and sing.
My faith looks up to thee, thou Lamb of Calvary, Savior divine. Now hear me while I pray. Take all my guilt away. Oh, let me from this day be wholly thine. When ends life's transient dream, when death's cold silent stream shall o'er me roll, blessed Savior, then in love, fear and distrust remove. Oh, bear me safe above a ransomed soul.
It is my prayer for you this week. Exercise your emotional truth muscles, that you feel what is true, and that give you strength and comfort and peace and courage. Go in peace. Amen.